WCLN 1170 Radio and Star Communications Channel 16 proudly present the We Should Know Show, an upbeat, informative look at people, places, and issues facing our community. This education-based analysis of issues will remain positive and informative. Celebrating 15 years of bringing you the We Should Know Show, here's your host, J.W. Simmons.
Welcome back. The name of the show is We Should Know. My name is J.W. Simmons, your host. Always good to be here each and every week at Tuesday at 2:30. And this show is simulcast on WCLN Radio as repeats at 7 p.m. on Tuesday, Thursday, talking about a subject today is critically important to you now, in the future, and years from now is education, particularly public education. And that format is something we're talking today about, a new facility here called Hobbton High School. We have with us today Miyuki Keller. Miyuki, thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
She's an architect. Also, Dr. Jamie King, who has been on a number of times. Dr. King, everybody knows you by face. I mention your name. They know exactly who you are. You are literally immersed in this population here. I want to start with you this morning, Dr. King. This is one of the things that's important and has been a passion for you, is to ensure that public education is at the forefront of our children and the future of our children. What does this high school that we're talking about mean when you see that sign that's now posted on US 701 that shows the landscape and the new school is coming? What does that mean to you?
I think it means that we're building for the future.
Yes.
Right. That there's an outcome and an expectation, right, of what our students and our community can do. When I came to Sampson 2 years ago, I was told about this new Hobbton, and the community had been working for years on this new Hobbton, but just couldn't get it across the finish line. And as I talked to people, it was the dreams, the aspirations. It was not the building itself, but it was what the building could mean, right? It was the different future for our students, the different outcomes, the different teaching that our teachers could do in classrooms, right? The different classes we could offer, the different, partnerships with the community college and with the community. And so I think that although we see a building, it's about much more than a building. It's about really changing outcomes for kids, changing outcomes for the community. This will be the third iteration of Hobbton, right? And to know that this all started with a group of farmers hundreds of years ago who wanted a school in the Hobbton community for students. And now we're, going to break ground in a year on over $80 million building that will be here for generations to come. I think that's what it means for me, is that there is a future, that there's a step, there's a path forward, and that this building will be kind of the lighthouse, of where we're going in the future. I imagine that this building will be something that the community rallies around behind, that this building is used for more than just instructional, more than just educational, but is used as a community center to build that community. Community is not just about the place, but it's about the people in the place, right? And so this gives the people in the Hobbton area, in the Newton Grove area, this location that they can have meetings, they can do different events at. And so I just look forward to the different options that this building will bring to our community.
It's interesting to me, and we talked about this a bit off camera, but under your leadership, we're actually seeing something come together that folks in this county have talked about for decades, the need for a new Hobbton school facility. So you got to be proud of that it's actually going to happen. And with that said, Miyuki, I want to turn to you. You're the person that now looks at it, and we've got a lot of graphs here we're going to look at a little bit later, but you actually look at it from the sense of how do you make what he's hoping is happening and what's really happening and 80 million plus come to fruition, putting that together. Where do you start? How does that work?
Yeah, I think, well, for starters, it's not just me. I have a very capable team with me, and it's not just us internally looking at this by ourselves, but we work so closely with Sampson County, with the educators, staff, to really understand what their needs are. So how do we start? We start by listening. We start by understanding the needs of the community, the needs and the vision that they have, to really understand what we're trying to develop, what we're trying to create in order support the vision that they have. And that's all we're trying to achieve, is really supporting the vision and then building a facility, a school that is going to last the community for decades to come. Something is going to be usable. Something is going to make sense for them. It's going to be so that they're good stewards of the funding that they've received. And then also make sure that, again, it is meeting the needs that they have now, but also the needs that could potentially come into the future. So really, we're just translating their vision into something that's actually built.
The architectural firm you're with, looking at some of the buildings that they have actually been involved in as far as the architectural structure part, definitely you've got the experience and background to make it happen. When you look at that, and we're looking at what, 119,000 square foot building. That's a huge facility just within itself. And where it's located is also a huge landscape change. When you look at that, how do you go about as an architect saying, well, this is based on what you just said, this is where I need to put this, and this is where this room needs to be, and this maybe is something that would work here. Is that an ongoing process that you get feedback and then make changes? Just tell us how that works.
So again, it starts out from listening. So we really understand the need. We talk about program and what are all the building blocks and all the little pieces that need to come together that create the space itself. So we actually sat down at the very beginning with more or less bubbles that said program types. Is it a gym? Is it a classroom? What are the spaces that are going to make up the school? And we really talked about relationships and what was important, what made sense for educators, what made sense for education and how they want to teach, what they want to teach. And that really starts that foundation. And then once we have that conversation and once those pieces come together, then we start more or less making things more of a reality. We start trying to figure out, how is that going to work in terms of designing a building? How is that going to relate to the site? How is it going to make sense when it comes to orientation of the full building and relationships to other things, not just on the site, when it comes to maybe where the parking or the entrance is, the fields that are on the site, but then also relationships to other buildings, the school across the street. How is this going to work? How is it going to look and interface and interact with the community and the people who are going to be passing it or entering it? So it really starts high level, big ideas, and then we really start closing in to make sure that we're developing something that has meaning behind it as we go through the process.
Yeah, and I think, JW, to add to that, right, I think it's also knowing what do we need the school to do now, but then what do we think the school's going to need to do in 20 years from now, and 40 years from now, right? And so when we talk about those spaces and those designs, it's also future looking, right? And so it's talking with educators and teachers, talking with the community about, so right now we teach biology. Well, what do we think biology is going to look like in 20 years from now? Like what's needed in that classroom that's going to be able to modify and morph and grow, right, as things change. And so I think there's a lot of discussion and thought behind how does it work now, but then also looking to the future, right, and how is it going to be used in the future, and making those two things align to make sure that this building continues to operate at its most efficient, highest efficiency level in 30, 40, 50 years from now, and not having to take more taxpayer money to upfit or upgrade, but how do we build that in now with the chance, right, that then you can change it later, right? So movable walls, garage doors, right? Things that make spaces larger or can open them up so that you can do multiple things with a classroom. So it's not your typical 30 students in a room with one teacher. Well, could you change it and do something different, if the situation arises?
Well, and one of the things, Miyuki, that you mentioned that I think is important too is that you received a lot of input from different sources and from many people that are actually doing the process of education. And then you apply that structurally to the measurement, to the specificities, and those kinds of things. How do you develop also a sense of transformation with a design that has to have structure, obviously, but at the same time can be used for different kinds of things? Is that a hard thing to do? Is schools becoming more transforming as far as their spaces are concerned? Kind of give us your feeling on that and what inputs you've had. And we're going to again look at some of these floor plans, I'll call them.
Yeah, absolutely.
In a little while. But as you looked at that, was that something that was a challenge, or did you already have kind of a picture of what you would do?
Yeah, I think it's two parts. We, of course, want to listen to the educators, understand what they see as some of the challenges they're facing now, and then also what they want to do in the future. But I think in general, just being learners ourselves and trying to educate ourselves, we look at what is happening in education today as architects who specialize in education, educational buildings and schools. We really want to make sure that we understand how is the landscape changing? How are buildings changing for the types of students that we're teaching now and in the future? What type of spaces are we seeing improve education, improve student performance, improve teacher performance, and how are we really going to be able to transform those spaces? So there's a lot that we learn and we bring into the conversation that simply enhances the vision that a lot of these educators have. So we look at collaborative spaces, looking at how students interact with each other. No longer are we looking, like you said, no longer are we looking at a single classroom as being just the space for education. We're seeing students and teachers really interacting in a different way, having different ways of learning, different ways of absorbing information and communicating. So we're trying to create spaces that really allow students to learn in their best way possible. So
now this will be a 2-story facility, so there'll be multiple levels. You also have to build in space and accountability for students that need access for whatever kind of thing. I mean, that's statutory. Is that something also that's important to look at as a broader picture, particularly as you look at blending athletics and you are blending language, you're blending art, you're blending technology, biology, chemistry, all of those things, you're blending it into one building. And one of the things that we talked about off air just for a moment was this idea of what, quote, we've always seen a gymnasium to be. I want you to if you would give us a mental picture here of what this space may look like. We got about a minute before we're going to go to break, but we'll start that. We'll start your response on that anyway. So
if we want to start on the flexible space, again, we're trying to build a space that is going to work for every student, that is not just going to be just for education or just for athletics, but really be able to make a school that is or spaces that are going to support lots of different activities. So one of the really interesting opportunities that we have is there's a need for an auditorium space, but there's also need for more flexible space for other activities. So our auditorium is going to be a flexible auditorium that can transform from a very traditional feeling auditorium that has the plush seats and has elevated seating and a stage that is elevated with all the supporting spaces that you would imagine for a theatrical space, but then can transform into a space that is for athletics. It can be used for a full basketball game, a regulation basketball game, or it can be used for color guard or for cheerleading or for meetings or any sort of space. It really becomes a flexible space that utilizes a space that a lot of times goes unused. So we're really trying to find a way to be smart about how we're using those spaces and being able to give as much usable space back to the school as possible. And I think that was something that was really stressed by a lot of the feedback that we heard. So we tried to
That's got to be hard to do though, because when I think about just the seats bolted to the floor and, nice cushion seats, and all of a sudden tomorrow night we're going to have a basketball game at the speed of transforming, the ability to do it and the making that work is just kind of unimaginable. So when we come back, I want to kind of follow up on that thought a bit and maybe you can kind of help us understand how that may work. Ladies and gentlemen, we'll be back in a moment. Stay tuned. We're talking about a new high school called Hobbton. I've got about a price tag of about $80 million plus or minus. And I suggest plus, so you're going to need to understand what's happening. We'll be back in a moment.
Looking to refresh your home? At Clinton Appliance and Furniture, we've got everything you need to create the perfect space. We're here to help make your house a home with stylish furniture, appliances, flooring, design services, delivery, and repair. Visit ClintonAppliance.com to explore our selection or visit us at 401 Northeast Boulevard in Clinton. Shop local. Shop smart. Shop Clinton Appliance and Furniture. At Fisher's, it's not just about fashion. It's about exceptional service. Experience top-notch customer care and find your perfect look. Visit Fisher's today and feel the difference.
At the Reedy Mark, we take pride in a unique, distinguished customer experience. We specialize in handcrafted cocktails, allocated bourbons, as well as gourmet signature food items exclusive to our menu at the Reedy Mark in Roseboro.
The average American household has 17 devices connected to the internet. With more and more devices able to get online, you may need to increase your internet speed. Call Star Communications today and let us help you select the package that's right for you.
Independence is priceless, but peace of mind makes it possible. With Star Alert, your loved ones stay connected and protected 24/7. With just the simple press of a button, their information and location are sent to emergency operators. Star Alert gives you or your loved one immediate access to emergency help at home or on the go. Sign up during the month of August and get free installation. Call 800-706-6538 or visit starcom.net to get started.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. J.W. Simmons here. The name of the show is We Should Know. It's our pleasure to be with you today. We're also excited to have the Superintendent of Sampson County Schools, Dr. Jamie King, and also Miyuki Keller. And you're an architect, and you're the project director for Hobbton High School, brand new school, where the sign is across from the old school, about 90 acres, I think, there. The facility's being built. Miyuki, as we went to break, and on break, we talked a bit more about the detail of the transformational part of this new facility. Literally new, innovative. Some of the things you were saying, I just have to get on film here, is that the way the room might transform from an auditorium, nice plush seats, to now we're playing basketball. Or they might transform to another facility as far as that room. But all of that is, from what I'm hearing you say, automated based.
Yeah, that's correct. So the seating that we're looking at is a retractable seating that, again, when it's fully in its final position, you'll be having the plush seats that are much like you'd see in a traditional movie theater or a traditional auditorium. But with a press of a button, that whole system then retracts and stores away. And what's left is a full-sized court. So you can have full play on that court. We have storage facilities storage areas that are directly off of the main court that will house basketball goals, very similar to what you see at a collegiate level, that are fully movable, that transform and can be brought out and put on the court. So it allows the space to, when it needs to be a performative space, truly feel like a performative space. And then when it needs to be a basketball court, it can be a basketball court, and it can have finishes. And there's a lot of planning that goes into the whole idea of having a space that is going to be durable, and having materials that are selected that are appropriate not only for a theatrical space that feels like you're in a true performance space, but also is going to be able to last and be able to withstand the type of transitions that are going to be needed in order to change it from a theatrical space into a basketball court or into any sort of like a gala type setting. And anything that we want to try and throw at this space, we want to be able to accommodate. So there's a lot of time that's we're taking to make sure that we can truly transform this space as quickly as possible and make sure that it lasts for as long as possible. So we're being very careful.
And JW, I think it's important to talk about how we got here. Right. Right. So when we started this process, one of the things we did was take our design team, which is principal, teachers, everybody in the organization, every kind of level, took them to different schools to look at, right? And so we went to Midway and Union and talked to the schools about how are these spaces used, right? We went to other schools, right? So those are just two of the schools we went to. But what we heard was that the auditorium space is great. And when it's needed, it is perfect. But it's such wasted space throughout the course of a school day, right? That it's just not used in day-to-day operations. And so then I really challenged, right, Miyuki and her team with how can we redesign this space, right? Like, I don't want to build an auditorium that sits empty for 3/4 of a day, right? And that's $8 million. You know, when we're trying to really harness every single dollar that we have. And so they came back with this really ingenious idea of this collaboration space that can be both, right? That it can be a full functioning auditorium and have all the bells and whistles, right? Because what I have said, I've said on your show before, is I don't want a B building. I want an A, right? It's got to be the best. It's got to be everything that we need it to be. And then some, right? They've always pushed me back that you can have anything you want, but you can't have everything that you want, right? Same type of thing. We have to cut back. But this space, I just believe, right, it's one of my favorite spaces when we get to the building and really talk about it, because I feel like it's so flexible. It can do so many different things for both the school, the community, right? Businesses could use it for things that I just feel like this is really a gem of this building. And I'm really excited to see kind of when we get to fruition and see it in its full impact. I think people are going to be like, wow, that is an awesome space, because it can do so many different things.
It seems to Miyuki, it seems like this, what I'm hearing you say, this is like a future focused building with the future in mind. And, we've talked about the idea of looking at 20 years or 30 years down the road. I mean, this is a building that literally the expectation is that it's still going to be vital and performing 30 years from now. And that's a bold statement, especially the way everything's changing. I don't even know whether we have school buildings, but that's the reality where we are. Is that a big challenge for you as an architect to say, can I really make that happen? And the endurance of that material that you talked about, it comes down to the hardware and material. Will that material last that long? Or is there a refurbish point that maybe you have to say, well, okay, we got to replace this after 10 years because we've worn something out?
Yeah. So we always think about longevity. It is definitely something that when it comes to the concept of future-proofing a space, it's about creating flexibility, but then marrying it with how do we find durability and products that are going to last, but then still be able to fit within the budget that we have? So, obviously we take a lot of time to really balance that, make sure we understand and make sure that the school system understands what they're walking into as well. So there's a lot of education on both parts. When it comes to the system that we want to put in, whether it's the bleacher system, the flooring types, the goals that we're looking at, the stage, we take a lot of time to make sure that everyone understands how it would work, how it would function. There's been a lot of back and forth about that. And then also making sure that they're aware of what it's going to take to maintain and make sure that they're ready to take on a system like that, and that it's within their capabilities being able to maintain that, because we don't want to install we don't want to build something that is not going to be sustainable for them to use or to keep up. So that's another layer of complexity that we really have to think about, is making sure that it's not just a fancy new system that we're putting in or a fancy new concept, that it's really going to work, it's going to last, and it's going to be something that they're able to maintain and be able to sustain throughout the life of the building. So we think about all of those things.
I think it's an exciting moment. I mean, I'm just sitting here listening, and it's what I've done as far as research. It's an exciting moment for the people in the area, for the people in totality of Sampson and surrounding counties. The impact is going to be huge. One of the things I wanted Dr. King, kind of reach back to you is that there's multiple phases, as you pointed out on the show before. There's time for programming and design. There's time for bidding and award. And there's also that time when construction starts. So let's start there and say we're talking about construction starting, and of course TA Loving is the company that's going to be doing the oversight for construction. Two different parts here, architectural here, but what are you thinking in terms of realistically construction start time? Because I know at one time maybe you were thinking maybe August or September.
Yeah, so next August will be when we dig a hole, right? I always say we dig a hole in the ground. Right. That'll kind of happen next August. And
2026.
That is correct. And then from there, about 2 years build time to then hopefully move in July of 2028.
I mean, that's amazing. I'm just, with everything that I've seen and everything I've read, I don't know about folks listening, but I'm just saying from me, that sounds like an outstanding track record if we could get that done. Architecturally, Miyuki, does that make sense architecturally that it could come together that quick?
Absolutely. So this is obviously we developed this schedule as a team. Yeah. So this isn't just something that has been pushed by any one individual person.
It's just not a possibility. It's a reality.
Absolutely. It's a reality. Absolutely. And we have had this is an aggressive schedule, but we have a wonderful team with us. TA Loving is very capable. They've done a lot of schools before, a lot of large buildings before with aggressive schedules. And there's a lot of creative ways that all of us can come together, and we have a construction plan that allows us to get our design completed, permitted, bid, and then built. So that is the goal.
So there's a real reality here. We're looking at August 2028 that children could actually be walking in that facility as a new school in the Hobbton district. I want folks to kind of process that.
Yeah, you know, our current freshmen, right? So students who will enter the school next week as ninth graders, you know, they will spend their senior year in Hobbton, you know, completing their high school requirements. And so we're excited about that. That's what we feel like, you know, is the timeline that's applicable, that we're going to meet. And so I think that it starts to really get real for the community. You know, we put the sign up last week. Absolutely. Right. So it's those steps moving towards digging a hole in the ground to start building, to then really occupy and have students there.
And then that's an exciting time too, Miyuki, for not only parents, but for the students, but even for folks like me that are grandparents. We look at it because we're saying, wow, you know, I'm going to get the chance of possibly actually seeing this school. Because, I mean, if something takes 10, 15 years, I'm just, you know, I'm being a realist here, you know, but just 3 years, that's amazing to be able to put it together that quick. You guys agree with that? I'm excited.
I mean, I think what we forget is the work that happened before we got here, right? Yeah. And so, you know, I always talk about we have to learn from those who came before us. Sure. Right. And so just because we got it over the finish line, there was so much work done before I ever came to Sampson, right? With SfL+a and with architects to talk about what does this new Hobbton need to look at, right? And so 5-6 years ago, when this conversation first began, you know, there were discussions then of what does the school need? What do we use? And so we've just picked that ball up and continued it across the goal line. Sure. But there were lots of people before us who helped us so that we can get on that timeline. You know, I have the same thing. I have people all the time who are like, well, can we do graduation there the year before? And I'm like, I don't know.
That's right, exactly.
I don't know.
Everybody wants to put a pin in it. Say, stick it right here.
Like, let us start and figure out when we get there. You know, because there's no telling what happens once we get to construction too. You know, I mean, weather can throw lots of wrenches and curveballs into it, and especially this area, you know, with hurricane season coming up, that could be something that really derails timelines once we get into the actual construction phase.
Look, guys, we're coming up on a break. So once we take this break and come back, I want folks to understand they're going to see us in a different format because we're going to be standing over here at a table. We're going to be looking at the actual sketches, the architectural sketches, looking at the details of a huge project. And I think it's important for people to see that as we're seeing, and hopefully we're going to try to give them as much as we can a visual view, because folks may not be able to make those meetings and see it. They might not be able to understand it, but if we can get them to understand how critically important this is for the community, for their children, and for their future, I think we've really scored big on this show. So again, we'll be back in a moment. Stay tuned, ladies and gentlemen. We'll be back in a moment and looking at the architectural details.
Welcome to Cork and Brew Roseboro, where you can enjoy your favorite coffee, fraps, smoothies, bakery items, sandwiches, and select beer and wines while reconnecting with friends and family. Sit down and enjoy the experience. Come on by and give us a try.
This year, when you get together with friends, we hope you have a great time. Just remember to drink responsibly and know your limits.
Let me have your keys.
And always have a safe way home.
See ya. Later.
Enjoy responsibly and always plan ahead.
Since our inception, we have distributed in food and supplies over $3 million worth out of Salemburg, North Carolina. And people always ask us, what can we do to help? So Norman has got some little slide cards here so we can tell you what we do need and maybe, as importantly, what we don't need.
Absolutely.
So, what we do need is soup, canned soup, ramen. What we do not need is hair tonic or hairspray. There's only one of us that uses hair tonic, and he has an ample supply. But we do need rice. We distribute rice every month. Bag rice, box rice, yellow rice, white rice, don't make any difference. We need rice all the time. What we don't need is live pigs. If you want to have that pig ready to barbecue, we can use that. But we do need canned vegetables. We'll take corn, beans, any kind of canned vegetables. We distribute about 2,000 cans of vegetables every month. What we don't need is chia pets. Sometimes early in the morning, Norman looks like a chia pet, so we don't need, particularly before he puts his hair tonic on. But we do need peanut butter and jelly. There's a lot of children at home. We use peanut butter and jelly, again, 12 months out of the year. Any size jar, any flavored jelly, grape, apple, it don't make any difference. We'll take any of it. We do not need sushi. The fish around here says, please cook me and lard. We don't need sushi. But we do need Pop-Tarts. Children at home, they eat Pop-Tarts. We need Pop-Tarts all the time. We do not need used tires. That may come as a surprise to some folks, but Norman has decided to bring his used tires around his belly. That's where he hauls his all the time. Send checks to the Christian Food Bank of Salemburg, P.O. Box 134, Salemburg, North Carolina, 28385. And Norman has a little note there that says cash is as good as money. So that's how you can help us.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Thanks for being with us today. J.W. Simmons here, your host. The name of the show is We Should Know. To my right, you see the architect, Miyuki. I have to get this right. Miyuki, and you can edit that. So, Miyuki Keller. And Miyuki, we're going to be taking a close look at some of the layout and some of the detail of this architectural design that you and your team have put together. To my left, you see Dr. Jamie King, who is the leader and the orchestrator of this entire event and bringing it together along with a lot of people. So we wanted to give you a visual kind of look at the facility. And Dr. King, I want to kind of start with the building, the exterior view with this one particular outside look here. And Miyuki, I wanted you to kind of explain some of the detail of that as we look at it as well.
Yeah, so we're really excited about the new Hobbton High School. So this is kind of the entrance area. Students and staff, families would come in the front door. You have a huge sign as next to the entrance that says Hobbton High School. But one of my favorite parts is this canopy, right, that provides shade as you walk in the building. But it's a subtle nod to Sampson County, right? And so Sampson County is the barn quilt capital of the world. Mm-hmm. And so instead of just plastering a big barn quilt on the side of the building, this canopy actually will be semi-translucent. I think I got the word right. Yeah. And the sun will shine through it and will make this barn quilt pattern, mm-hmm. like on the ground, on the side of the wall, wherever the sun may shine. And so it's this nod to Sampson County, to the great things happening here, right, to the culture, to the history. And so I'm really excited that the engineers have really listened to us when we talk about making sure the building fits, making sure that, right, we have nods to the history, right, to the past of Hobbton. And this kind of walk-in area with this semi-translucent canopy that will make this barn quilt, I think, is just really exciting.
Miyuki, tell us a little bit about the architectural work that went behind that, because I know some creativity was involved in that as well.
Absolutely. So again, we really listened. One of the things that we heard is making sure that the building looked like it fit in Sampson County. We wanted to make sure that it didn't stick out like a sore thumb, that it spoke to the colors, to the school pride, but then also was able to give some nods to the history and some of the things that really make this community special.
That ag landscape.
Absolutely. So, you see a lot of the brick, that natural color, some things that you see in residences and other buildings around here, but then also trying to find some things to make a really iconic entrance that'll pull people in from across the street and when you enter into the building. So as Dr. King had mentioned, we have this yellow entry canopy that is going to have these, laser cut quilt that again takes that nod to the barn quilt that you see all over the county, and that will cast shadows across the building that move throughout the day and really create a playful entrance and a playful pattern that you'll see throughout the day in different points as you enter in the building. And again, bringing in the Hobbton High School sign that we had talked about, again, trying to create a special moment that's really going to be relatable and something that people can interact with. And our idea is we could see students taking their senior pictures out there on graduation day and people taking prom pictures there, senior pictures. So I think the whole idea of, again, bringing some personality, bringing something that is meaningful and really speaks to what is Sampson County and what is this community and Hobbton High School specifically.
Really fits the visual appetite,
Absolutely.
I think. And as we look at that, and then we see the transitional part, and for folks that are watching also, this particular format or schematic we're looking at, this diagram really is the new site. We're talking 90 acres. Across from this is the old high school, which will be no more. Correct. I understand that'll be demolished, Dr. King.
Yeah.
Okay, but when we look at this site, there's multiple entries and exits here. Let's kind of start with the property itself and the parking and traffic design.
Yeah, so absolutely. So we really looked at the totality of the site and looked at relationships to some of the existing buildings that will remain after the school is going to the existing high school will be demolished, but then also making sure that we're really paying attention to how traffic flow is going to come and enter into this space. So you'll see we have a primary entrance for student and staff parking, as well as parent drop-off, where come and take all of these cars off of this main road. So really reducing any of that worry about backup onto that main road and pulling that back onto the campus. So again, alleviating some of that issue that we potentially could see on this highway. And then we have a separate entrance for the bus drop-off loop over here that also provides some access to some of the athletic fields that are planned for the future and for some of the space as well. So when you enter in, again, we're pulling the building a bit back off of the street. That's a safety and security thing. But then also allowing us to have all of the centralized parking that is going to be able to help with the growth of the school for student and then staff separated. And then bringing everyone into this single entrance. We're really trying to focus on security and making sure that people know where they're going. So when someone's coming into the building intentionally, they know where they're going. So that's part of that whole idea of security, is having one common entrance where everybody comes into one point of entry. So that really brings you into the heart of the building right here.
Okay.
And again, having a lot of access around and bringing everyone funneling into that core of that building.
And I think, before we get there, knowing that we'll do some DOT studies, right? So Department of Transportation will come out, they'll sit out there and almost camp out, right? Count number of cars, look at what the traffic looks like to make sure that this recommendation works for them. And if it doesn't, then they'll say, no, you need another entrance, or no, we need to move that off of Hobbton.
Or they may need a turn lane or something built on.
Correct. Yep. And so really looking to them once we have the finalized site, what their recommendations are on a traffic study.
Yeah. So this has to be finalized, obviously, and approved by DOT. So that is only one of the steps that we'll be going through when it comes to approvals, not only at DOT level, there are other state approvals, county and city approvals. So we have a plethora of other approvals that we'll be going through to make sure that we're meeting all of the specifications and letters of the law as we go through this planning process.
Miyuki, speak to the layout of, and this is a big deal for a lot of folks, and that's the athletic fields, the football field, baseball fields, soccer, that kind of thing. I see that they're laid out in, a kind of a unique way. Was that done with something in mind to make sure flow works? Explain that to us.
Absolutely. So we have worked a lot with the athletic director, as well as the Sampson County School team, as well as our designers and engineers, to make sure we understand positioning and sunlight and orientation and how things are going to fit on this site. So currently in our program, we have the main building and all of these parking structures and areas. And then in our current budget, we have the football and soccer field with the track. And then some of the alternates that we're planning for in the future, again, if we are able to obtain additional funding, is going to be the grandstands and the bleachers, concession stand, as well as these two fields. So we really wanted to make sure that we're planning for what is going to come at its final layout. So we really took a lot of time to make sure that we understood and centralized everything so that we have the fields and the concession stand and the football field all centered into one area so that we have good access from the main parking area, and really everyone funnels into this main athletic facility is what the final goal is.
And Dr. King, that was with a lot of people's input, correct?
Yes.
Yeah, it was. And, I think when we look at the site plan, this is not where we started. This is probably the 5th iteration maybe. And we've moved things around and gotten feedback and talked to different people. I think it's important when we talk about, especially the athletic facilities, right? That right now those are alternates, right? As we still try to build the budget. We're still kind of about $4 million short of where we need to be to have the complete school. We have the building paid for, right? All of that, but those alternates for baseball, softball, right? Bleachers, grandstands, those things are where we're still working on fundraising, right? Looking at other grants, right? Talking with the engineer or the architect about value engineering and what are there things that we can cut to help us there, but we're still working on that part.
I mean, one of the things also I want to mention again that we talked about a while ago, this is also designed with the future in mind. And when I say future, 20, 30 years out.
Yeah, absolutely. So again, we're really trying to make sure that we're planning for a full campus, a campus that's going to work for not just today, but plan for the future as well. So you hit it head on.
Yeah, and I think that point is right here. If you look at just athletics, right, you have one concession stand, but how everything's oriented, everything can use that one concession stand.
Yeah.
Right. If you
it's
put a
central located kind of.
Right. If you put a softball field over here and slit everything and put the baseball field here, well, then they're not all able to use the same things. And so really tried to have a lot of conversations about how do we use the same facilities for different activities, right? How do we get the most bang out of our buck, right? When we're building this building to make sure that it works for everybody.
Well, and plus, from what I just heard you say, it just cuts down on duplication of the same thing. So you're actually saving money that maybe could be used for the expansion of that other field that you need. Certainly the acreage is here. From what I've heard you say, we're talking 90 acres that you have available. Now, granted, some of that may not be
suitable. Yes. We might have a lot of land available, but all of these tight little lines are just a representation of how steep the grade is.
Yes.
So in order to try and keep costs reasonable, we want to try and build on the flattest area possible. Yeah. So obviously we might have a lot of additional land available, but it costs a lot of money to develop and expand in that area. So we really tried to orient the program on the site and the different fields on the site to really use it to its best capabilities.
Before the question's asked, let's answer it. The property here that is probably not suitable for certain kinds of things, is it suitable for like trails, jogging trails, walking trails, that kind of thing? Is that a possibility for the future?
Yeah, I think that's definitely a possibility. Not in our current plans, but I think there's definitely possible future.
Because we got a lot of acreage here that could actually be used for.
That is correct.
What I call nature trails, just kind of getting away. And I know a lot of folks.
A really awesome cross country team coming in there.
Yeah, and I, those are kinds of things I think that folks mention, or one of the three of us, I'm sure, has probably picked up on some of this in the future. So what I'd like to do when we come back from our break here, I want to kind of move this out, and Miyuki, I want to kind of get into the details. Oftentimes we use a phrase around here called get into the nitty gritty of it, which is a very micro kind of level. Yeah. So that's going to be important. So I want to ask folks, if you will stay tuned. Also, I want to ask you to go ahead and call a friend or somebody that may be not watching this. Let them know the show's going on. Tell them our schedule for this show. If they want to see this, certainly they're going to be able to do it and look at it. And Dr. King, I think you always need input, no matter where we are in this process. Your door's always been open. That's one of the things I hear a lot of people say. Well, you're easy to talk to, and then that. Yucky, it gets back to you then. And at that point in time, this becomes a fixed moment in time. So when we come back, ladies and gentlemen, this is going to be gone. We're going to be looking at the inside of these buildings and telling you a bit about how they're laid out, how you can get into it. We'll be back in a moment.
Providing fewer commutes, more backyard offices, and crystal clear meetings. Providing less, you froze up, and more presence in your presentations. Providing a better internet experience. Providing possible.
How can your friend save you money? It's easy. Refer a relative, coworker, neighbor, or friend to Star Communications. Friend signs up for high-speed internet service. Friend's new account is confirmed. Friend gives your name to our service representative as the one who referred them to Star. You receive a $30 internet credit. It's just that simple. And even better, receive a $30 internet credit for every referral that results in a new confirmed account. High-speed internet from Star Communications. Refer a friend today.
We find in life that some things just go together. Like peanut butter and jelly, cheese and crackers, steak and potatoes, and of course, milk and cookies. But the bottle and the throttle are never a good combination. Be smart. Be safe. Be responsible. Don't drink and drive.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back. Miyuki Keller, architect, and also Dr. Jamie King, educator. A building we're looking at called the Hobbton High School, the new Hobbton High School, right across the road. And we're looking now, Miyuki, we're looking now at the floor plan from the inside of the building.
Yes.
Since we've looked at the outside and kind of taken in that dynamic, it becomes very important, some of the details that you're looking at laying out here for folks. I want to just kind of give you the latitude of starting and going through that. And Dr. King, of course, jump in when you need to. But this is a wonderful layout. And as you said, you've got everybody coming in the front door. There's a security reason for that.
Absolutely.
We want folks to understand that this was not put together with just, well, there's the building and that's it. There's a lot of stuff here that's going to be state of the art. So I'm going to let you take it from there.
So what we have here is a diagrammatic floor plan. So again, we've decided to color code it so you can get an understanding of some of the spaces and the makeup of the spaces. So just trying to help you visualize it. So this is that main entry that kind of brings you into this primary space. So you have a secure vestibule that people must pass through in order to get into the building. If you're coming in as a visitor, you must go through the reception and check in before you're allowed into the main school. So again, we're trying to keep a single point of entry and not having additional entries around the school to really help keep this building secure. So that is our one of our primary methods of security.
And that's a huge aid for the SROs as well.
Absolutely. And the SRO is right up front. So he has visual of the main common dining space, but also that front entrance as well. So
cameras will be throughout?
Absolutely. Full cameras in all different locations. We also have a lot of security features when it comes to locking down the school as well, in case there's an emergency or a need for that. This space actually is set up to be a secured space that can be used during after hours as well as during school hours. So how the building is actually set up, we have the gymnasium space and the athletics area over here. Then we have our performance and our multi-purpose auditorium, which we've talked a little bit about previously. These are spaces that'll be often used by the public during after hours. And this dining and this common space will really double as a lobby and reception space for these spaces that can be locked down in the evenings. And then this really becomes your usable and public space. And then the learning area and the learning wing really can be secured after hours, but during school hours, it is open and connected to the rest of the building.
So you can literally limit access to different areas at different times of the day.
Yes, and so this can be fully utilized in the evenings by the community while maintaining security in those areas that don't need to necessarily have access to the public in general. So again, we talked about sort of the athletics and the arts. We have band and theater. We have a lot of supporting spaces in this back space. And then again, that multi-purpose space that has access off of that dining space and this gymnasium. We have the administration that has that control in that front of house space. And then it really filters into the dining space that then goes into this academic area. We have our ECS classrooms, and then we also have our CTE in this purple. So this large area of purple is our career and technical education spaces. So you have your culinary arts classrooms. You have your HOSA, which is going to be your the medical field, where you have preparatory spaces like we have different medical bays where they can actually have hands-on experience and lab space for that. We then also have all of our horticultural labs and supporting greenhouse and potential animal facility spaces and shops that are going to be tucked into the back of the building for some of the.
So shops being trades and those kinds of things,
absolutely.
Electrical, plumbing, Yeah.
Yeah, and we have
HVAC.
welding and our wood shop class as well. And I think really what we're trying to do is build spaces that are flexible that can transition to any of those types of trade programs as well, so that we're providing spaces and classroom spaces where in the future they could expand the program that they have. So really thinking ahead of how these spaces then connect into some of these common spaces. All of these classrooms on the first and the second floor in the academic wing are connected by a very open and spacious common space, this learning common space that has collaboration spaces off of them that students can pull off from from all of their classrooms and really utilize in different ways that are, again, a more modern way to have education. And we have this media center that no longer is just for books, but you see tablets and computers, and you see different types of media and different types of interaction. We have a learning stair that will be able to show you in the future some of what the renderings are really going to look like. So we're excited to kind of allow you to visualize that later on.
Will the walls be glass, or will they be standard structural material, or what? Yeah,
so when you get into the interior, there will be glazing that will allow you to visually connect some of the classroom space into the common space.
Sure.
And when they want to open up those spaces, they have that visual connection. If they need some of that privacy or that time for testing or quiet time, they have roller shades and different ways to kind of close off those spaces so they do become more private.
But it makes it look more open with the visual.
Yeah, and there's also, not only does that allow visual for just flow of the space and community of the space, but it also allows for students and teachers to be able to have more of a community visual connection, which actually helps when it comes to security as well. When you have a lot of eyes in a lot of different spaces, we see that it reduces the type of mischief that can happen when you know that there's a lot of other teachers and other educators and students that see what's going on at all times.
Well lit and visual.
Absolutely. So we have a lot of natural light in this space coming from the second floor down. So we have some beautiful glazing that's going to be going around in the building. And you'll see here as we look at the second floor, this space actually looks down onto the bottom floor and into that media center that we showed here. And we're connected by some grand stairs and some learning stairs where students can sit and occupy some of those learning spaces, where you can kind of have lecture type spaces. And again, these yellow areas are these collaboration spaces where you can see some of these classrooms starting to spill out into these common spaces, and these collaborative areas where you can have teamwork, have classrooms, class spaces, and classes that are being taught.
Cuts down on congestion in the hallways.
Absolutely, yeah. And so these hallways that you're going to have, yes, they're for movement, but they really start to bleed into some of these common spaces where you're going to see more active spaces that, again, allow for visual connection. You know what's going on. Teachers can observe these spaces, but again, it allows more flexibility and freedom to students to have a different type of educational experience.
And I think to that point, right, when you look here, there's not a lot of hallways, right? It's open area. And so it's also changing how teachers use the spaces, right? So instead of a hallway just being where kids walk down the hall to switch classes and they're just waiting, right? Well, we're now transforming those spaces into collaboration spaces that a teacher could actually take, that it's large enough that a teacher could take a group of kids out there and do an activity with, right? They could open their classroom door, and because of the glazing, they can see both spaces, and kids could work independently, possibly in the collaboration space, come back into the classroom, right? Teacher could open it up and have two different classes that they're leading together. Maybe it's a joint unit, that they're really trying to collaborate more. So it's really trying to also then make use of all the space in the building and not have just these hallways that are just used for transitioning.
Yeah, and learning's not just in a cubicle.
Exactly. It becomes instructional throughout the entire building.
So, and again, this is something that we're really excited about. We're really trying to listen to the way that Sampson County is planning on using the building and planning on using these classrooms. So we took a lot of time to make sure that we were not just planning for today, like we had said, and how we teach today, but what the possibility of teaching is in the future. And you'll also see some of the relationships too, is where, yes, we have a lot of our core classes up here, but then we also have the ability to then be connected to that first floor much easily and use potentially some of the lab space, use some of the media spaces. We have administration mixed not just at the front any longer, but we also have it mixed into the interior. We have our student services and our counselors' offices upstairs on the second floor, so they're closer to our students. They're able to be part of that fabric of the educational background more than just being at the front of the office where everyone necessarily goes. And again, we're all about trying to make a community, being able to really foster education and find a way to make students really outstanding give them an outstanding educational space that really tries to help them.
Well, this seems to add that sense of not only comfort but openness for the student as well, that they can feel, like they're being brought in and they're cared about. And as you just pointed out, with a lot of the teachers and so forth in the upstairs portion, they're there and actually can see out of their office area and see visually what's going on.
Absolutely.
Which adds to the security aspect.
Yes, there's a lot of layers that we're looking into that, there are technology that we're looking at that is obviously for security. We have cameras, we have specialty, door hardware and things of that nature. We have procedures, but at the same time, there's a lot that we can build into because we don't want the school to feel like a prison.
Sure.
We want it to feel like
Absolutely.
a school that is going to nurture and is going to educate our students to become, again, members of society. So what we're trying to do is make a space that feels welcoming, that they want to learn and that they want to collaborate and talk and be excited about coming to school. So that's what we're trying to achieve. So a marriage of that.
We've kind of given folks I'm going to call it a quick walkthrough, Dr. King.
Yes.
And I know one of the things that we've talked about off air that it's important to you as well is to make sure that folks understand that this is their facility. This is the citizens, not only in Sampson County, but particularly that area. This is a place they can look at and say, that's our new high school. And that's being built for 300 to 500 students, correct?
Correct.
For 20 to 30 years out.
Correct. Yeah, and I think that's, when Miyuki kind of talked about this, right? Like this part of the building can be completely isolated so that the community could rent out that space, right? They could use that space, and we don't ever have to worry about the instructional side of the building because of how the building's designed. It's designed to be a community use center. When we look at how we've moved classrooms around the building, it's so that it can be more of a community use so that these students don't just feel like they're going to a classroom, but that they're learning for their future, right? That this is a future-driven building, that what happens here will remain with you, right, throughout your life, that the skills you're being taught, right, how you go about the building, how you use the building are things that we can use, beyond just this building.
And Miyuki, I think you pointed out too, this space being used for community activities. It could be art shows, it could be meetings. I mean, one of the big things here, before we finish, I want to make sure, folks understand, this also fits the ag community that's a huge financial supplier to everything in this area. Absolutely. If you don't mention ag and farmers, we've messed up. So I want to make sure they understand they have this space as well, which adds a great amount of effort for folks in the northern part of the county that, is close to I-40, close to Raleigh. You got a space now, you can do whatever you need to do there. And make things
there's
happen.
greenhouses, right? There's animal facility, hopefully ag shops, so agriculture is also built into the culture of the building as well.
Absolutely. And again, it's all about flexibility. So I think the idea of doing a space that can serve the community and be able to be flexible for multiple types of activities. Again, we talked a little bit about the gymnasium where we have our concession stands and using this main dining space that can be transformed into a lobby community space, bringing people into this space. But then again, this flexible auditorium, and we've talked a lot about this space because we're really excited about it, but it's shown with a full-size basketball court here. And so that is something that it can transform into. But in this space you see here, there will be bleachers that will be, or theatrical seating that will retract out and be able to be transforming this space into a full-fledged theatrical space that has storage space for the basketball goals to really disappear. They have a full backstage area where there's storage, dressing rooms. They have access directly to theatrical classrooms as well as band and chorus. There's been a lot of work done with both of the teachers and both of the educators and really the entire Sampson staff to make sure that this space is going to work for the community as a whole, as well as what we're planning on doing with the future programming that they're having.
We packed a lot into the show today.
We did.
I'm telling you, Dr. King, I want to give you about 15 seconds for any closing comments.
Yeah, I'm excited about where we're going with the school. Ask the community if they have thoughts, questions, concerns to reach out. It's their building just as much as it is my building and your building, right? It's for all citizens of Sampson County. So we're just excited about it. I feel like this is like a baby that I'm watching grow up, in front of me, because it's definitely changed in iteration. So just thank the community, thank everybody who's a part of it, because it takes a village.
And Miyuki, I finally got your name correct, and everything's working well. So, Miyuki Keller, thank you for being an architect, and thank you for your vision and your team's vision on putting this together. Any last words?
It is a privilege. Yeah. So, SfL+a, we are proud to be part of the team. We're so excited to see some of the visioning that we're able to bring to life, and from vision to paper, and then soon to construction. So, we're very excited to see this come to reality.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you, and I join you in the pleasure of seeing this happen in Sampson County. We look forward to seeing you again right here on We Should Know next week, and as always, may God bless.
Thank you for tuning in to this week's episode of We Should Know with host J.W. Simmons. If you have a question, comment, or suggestion regarding this or any episode, please send your emails to weshouldknowedu@gmail.com. And remember to tune in every Tuesday at 2:30 for another informative episode of We Should Know.